It's week 9 of the NFL, and we give you our 3 best bets for this Sunday, and it all starts right now. Hey guys, it's Matt from grandstandbetters.com, and we have your 3 best bets for week 9 in the NFL. We're going to get to those in just a moment, but first, if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss those free plays each and every week throughout the NFL season, and while you're at it, smash that like button. If you are ready for another fun-filled Sunday of NFL action, I know I am. So, without further ado, let's dive into week 9 and start with the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions in the 1 p.m. Eastern time slot. Packers, they're favored by 3.5 points. The over-under set at 49.5. You can add the Green Bay Packers to the list of disappointing teams as they have now lost 4 straight games after starting the year 3-1. Rodgers is not having an awful season, to say the least. He's thrown for 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions, but the Packers can't get things going in the first quarter. They are only averaging 3 points per game in that first quarter. Most people, they've been screaming for the Packers to start running the ball more with Aaron Jones, and last week they finally did. Jones rushed for 143 yards on 20 carries. That is a 7.2 yards per touch average, and on the season he averages almost 6 yards per carry, but he's only getting 12 touches per game. With Detroit having the 3rd worst rushing defense in the league, you have to think they're going to lean on Jones again this week. But really, we may finally see this as a coming out party for Rodgers, as Detroit is the worst defensive football team in the NFL. They give up over 420 yards per game. So can the Lions offense keep up with their defense? You have to ask yourself. Well, their 1-6 record would tell you that they cannot. Goff is trying his hardest to score more points than the defense allows, and they are top 10 in the NFL with 24.7 points per game, but that is still 8 points less than what their defense gives up. Goff, he's having an average season with 1,900 passing yards and a 2-to-1 TD to INT ratio. This season, to be fair though, Goff hasn't had his top wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, in a few games, and now with the loss of TJ Hawkinson, it looks like this offense is really going to struggle to move the football through the air. This week especially, as they find themselves against the 2nd-ranked secondary in the NFL, as Green Bay has given up 174 yards passing through the air. So the one area that Detroit should exploit is Green Bay's rush defense, who, like Detroit, is almost bottom of the league. With Williams, Swift, and Reynolds, it doesn't matter who's handed the ball in the backfield. They've done a great job this year, averaging over 5 yards per carry and giving Detroit a top 10 rushing attack. So what is our best bet for this NFC North matchup? Well, before the season started, we did a Detroit Lions season preview stating that the Lions sucked. A lot of people had choice words for us, and guess what? We're going to say it again. The Lions suck. Look for Rodgers to get back on track this week, pending all of his wide receivers don't have to skip the game. And look for Aaron Jones to get another 125 yards on the ground. So with our first pick of NFL week number 9, we're going to take the Green Bay Packers minus 3.5 points over the Detroit Lions. Now with our second matchup of week number 9, we're going to take a look at the Miami Dolphins taking on the Chicago Bears, also in the 1 p.m. Eastern time slot. Dolphins, 4.5-point favorites at the moment, over-under set at 45.5, and the Dolphins come into this one in 3rd place in a very bunched-up AFC East, beating those aforementioned Lions last week after they were down 10 at halftime. Tua continues to put up huge numbers on the season, going 29-36 for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Even with missing essentially 3 whole games, this guy's thrown for nearly 1,700 yards on the season. It's been all Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the passing game, as both have combined for 111 receptions and 1,700 yards and 7 touchdowns. Hill alone is on pace for 140 receptions and 2,000 yards. This week will be a true test for Miami as they face a top 5 secondary in Chicago. Bears only letting up 188 passing yards through the air. And if the Dolphins really want to get things going this week on offense, they should actually put the ball on the ground a little bit more. Seems kind of like a trend here in Week 9, but the Bears have the second worst rush defense in the NFL, giving up over 156 yards per game. They just gave up 200 to the Cowboys. Now, the Dolphins don't have the best rushing attack in the league, but Mostert does have 4.5 yards per carry. Speaking of teams that run the football and run the football well, the Chicago Bears do just that. Bears, who are tied with the Packers at 3-5 in their division, only rely on their rushing attack. In fact, so much so, they have 300 more yards rushing than receiving. That is nuts. As a team, they're averaging 5.3 yards per carry behind Herbert, Fields, and Montgomery. This Dolphins defense is going to have a physical day ahead of them because they are just going to keep wanting to run the football because it's been working for them. And honestly, why reinvent the wheel? We won't even touch really on the Bears passing game because Mooney, who is their leading wide receiver, is just averaging 4 catches per game. That's how much they run the football. So what is our best bet for this showdown at Soldier Field? Well, the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears are two completely different teams, and honestly, their defenses align with what the other one is good at offensively. The Dolphins have a very stout rushing defense, and the Bears secondary has been able to stop teams through the air. But let's be honest, dive into who these teams have played. The Bears gave up 27 plus points to the two QBs that we would consider to have maybe above average talent. That is Rodgers and Cousins. And the Dolphins have really only played one heavy rushing team in the Ravens, and they gave up 119 yards to Lamar Jackson on the ground in that game. Both of these teams are going to keep doing what they are good at, and they're going to continue being successful at it again this week. So with our second best bet of week number 9 in the NFL, we're going to take the Dolphins Bears over 45.5 points. Now, before we get into our final pick of week number 9 in the NFL, just a reminder, if you want our full NFL card, head on over to grandstandbetters.com. Become part of our family. Links below in the description. We look forward to seeing you a part of our community real soon. But we do have one more best bet in week number 9, and it is in the Seattle Seahawks versus Arizona Cardinals matchup in the 4 p.m. Eastern time slot. Cardinals 1.5 point favorites here. 48.5 is the over at the moment. And the Seattle Seahawks are in first place in the NFC West. And who saw that coming? I think we can all agree nobody saw that coming except maybe Geno Smith, who, by the way, is passing at a 73% completion rate with 13 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. You add in a dynamic rushing attack with Walker and Penny on the season, and those two and the help of Smith's legs has ran themselves right into a playoff discussion. The most interesting thing about this team is the fact that they have been so successful with literally the 6th worst defense in the NFL. But unlike the Lions, the Seahawks can outscore their defense, and they are by putting up 26.3 points per game, which is 4th best in the NFL. They're going to face a bottom 3rd defense in the Cardinals, a team that just gave up 34 points in back-to-back weeks. And speaking of the Cardinals, they find themselves at the bottom of the NFC West, but only 2 games back of the Seahawks. So there is a little bit of hope left on this team to maybe run at the division title. Now, ever since Hopkins came back for the Cardinals, that has been a huge offensive turnaround for this team. They're averaging 38 points in those first 2 weeks he's been back. Murray coming off a 31 for 44 outing for 326 and 3 touchdowns. And the Cardinals are set up to win games, but Murray has to stop turning the ball over. He's thrown 6 interceptions on the year, and although that's not that high, they seem to come at horrible times. But that is going to happen when you throw the ball 41 times per game like the Cardinals do. So you have to ask yourself, well, why do you do that? Well, because their rushing attack is awful. Murray is actually the leading rusher on that team with 300 yards on the season. Not even 300, 299. If there was ever a week, though, for this team to get their running backs involved, it would be this week because you guessed it, here's the trend again. The Seahawks, like most of the teams we have spoken about today, are awful on their rushing defense, giving up 140 yards per game on the ground. So what is our best bet for this NFC West showdown? Well, listen, Geno Smith is playing out of his mind, but does anyone actually believe he can continue to throw 73% completion rate throughout the entire season? With Arizona having a much better rushing defense than secondary, we do think that they're going to force Geno Smith to beat them through the air this week. And honestly, he might. But Kyler Murray, with Hopkins now back on the field, has been unleashed. And with how bad the Seahawks guard against the run, we think Murray is going to have a huge day and get these Cardinals up early, forcing Geno to have to come from behind this week. So with our final best bet of Week 9 in the NFL, we're going to take the Arizona Cardinals minus 1.5 points over the Seahawks. Now, normally we would be live streaming the Browns game on Sunday for you all, but they have a bye week this week, so we took the opportunity to head to South Bend, Indiana to watch Notre Dame versus Clemson game on Saturday. So, in the meantime, sit back, relax, enjoy Week 9 in the NFL, and we will see you live for some Monday Night Football.